Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Julie Allen. The tax landscape is rapidly changing, and tax functions need a more holistic, sustainable tax data strategy. Nolan Ogden, PwC's U.S. tax technology leader, is joining me today to discuss how such a strategy helps tax functions maximize their talent and technology resources. Nolan, welcome.
Hey, Julie, nice to be here.
So, Nolan, let's jump right in. What types of data are companies being asked for, and why are there new pressures around reporting?
Thanks, Julie. I mean, in addition to the pressures we've always had, it's just continued demand for increased transparency. We've got evolving tax regulations, geopolitical upheaval. Most people know about Pillar Two. I think that's only going to increase the pressure that we have. On top of it, you think about the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed and all of those incentives that are there. Tax needs to be at the table when the business is thinking about all of those investment decisions, because maybe you can pay for some of that with these credits, like the ability to monetize some of those investments decisions through tax is going to be really, really important. Also, when you think about ESG and total tax contribution, like there's more and more pressure from investors to get that taken care of. And where's that data going to come from? A lot of it actually sits in the tax department. And I think finally, Julie, the C-suite is always looking for that real-time tax data. And I know we've been striving to get there as an industry, but it's going to become so important, I think, for us to be able to get that data real time into the business hands to make those types of decisions.
So, Nolan, I think a few key themes came through there. Just the importance of reporting around uncertainty and the things that we're seeing there. Also with these credits and incentives, we're going to hear a lot about that, right? And that the reporting there and the data is very important. And then your key point, making sure that we're connecting with the C-suite. I think those are very key. Okay, so let's take that further to two more questions. Historically, how have companies been managing their data, and how has their data acquisition strategy changed?
Right now, that data, Julie, I mean, historically and unfortunately nowadays, you actually see that data sitting in silos. You see it across functions, and tax departments and the overall finance function are generally not sharing those very well. And so you oftentimes find that companies are asking for the same data multiple different ways. Like what we're seeing is a shift to really push that interconnectivity across the business owners. And that mindset shift is all data is useful data. If you think about it, at PwC, we spend a lot of time analyzing our clients' data environment and really try to meet them where they are, whether they're dealing with structured data, unstructured data, or just helping them get it organized.
And I think your point of meeting them where they are is very important because, as you said, companies can be at all different extremes on how they're handling their data function and their reporting. Let's stick on that for just a minute. So
Sure.
as we're talking about that, what are some of the implications of poor data acquisition and management?
Yeah, I mean, as we said, reporting requirements are increasing. I think that's a given. Staffing challenges continue to mount. That's a given. So you're going to have to actually do more with less. I know we've been hearing that a long time, but that's really, really coming to a head, especially with the legislation and all of the other changes that have been taking place across the globe. I think accountants traditionally spend a lot of time going through spreadsheets and using what I'll say the old way, and that's just time that we don't have to spend anymore. We've seen companies be really successful leaning into technology, newer technologies that helps them stop some of that more mundane spreadsheet analysis and really frees up the time for the analytical tasks, so those teams can focus on C-suite priorities. I think tax, we've talked about how tax can really drive that value through the organization, but that real-time decision making with tax data is so important and so important nowadays.
And Nolan, it is really important. I think a couple of the phrases that you noted, doing more with less and focusing on priorities, are key. So as you think of those two, what are some of the top mistakes that you see companies make when it comes to data management?
Julie, like the biggest thing that we see is same as last year. I'd say clients oftentimes don't understand how much data is actually inside the four walls of the tax department or even in finance. And we're oftentimes rolling over lead schedules, spreadsheets, things of that nature, and continuing that the silos across the functional areas. Some of some of the other challenges we're seeing is, are you really getting IT involved? Are you getting finance involved? Or is it just the same, what I'll say, data file over and over again?
And Nolan, that theme of really integrating the tax function, the C-suite, and all of the rest of the areas of an organization is so key. We see that all over the place with integrating and doing good business functions, that is really important. And you just emphasized it and highlighted it with respect to the data and how they're managing that. Okay, so we talked about some of those pitfalls. Let's talk about what are some of the best practices that you're seeing.
Yeah, Julie, I alluded to it earlier, like that, like a planning meeting, just to really understand those data requirements and understand those data requirements across the organization is so critical to really call out where we're getting the same data over and over again. Some of the other areas of success we're seeing is tax departments are going to really have to accelerate their plans for digital transformation and new sources of talent. It's harder and harder to get that traditional CPA talent. And so what we're seeing is companies, and we're actually doing some of this ourselves, is how can we break that tax function apart? And really, do we focus on hiring someone with data capabilities versus a traditional CPA to help us manage some of that data? And we've seen some clients be successful doing the same thing. Project management is another one that's something that's really important, especially for some of the tight reporting deadlines that our clients have. And realigning that skill set to someone that's maybe more traditionally or classically trained as a project manager has been helpful. Julia, at PwC, we're spending probably $3 billion in technology and upskilling. And our job is to continue to enhance our engagement teams, our client experience, because our clients continue to feel that pressure. Like the reporting obligations are not letting up. And I'll tell you, like the staffing challenges are not letting up either. One of the things that we just invested in and have been building was a tool called Sightline. It actually brings all of those reporting capabilities together in one spot, just because like this traditionally has been so siloed, and we're seeing it's so interactive and intertwined more and more.
And Nolan, I think those best practices ring true all the way through. If I just summarize those, really focusing on that planning meeting, accelerating that, really maximizing and focusing on the best use of talent, and then really focusing on the investment in technology. That is key to line that right up with good data strategy. Nolan, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight. This is very helpful insight. So we thank you for joining us. And please remember that getting policy on demand through email is easier than ever. Just click on the QR code at the end of this episode or click on the link in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for joining us and for watching. Please take care and stay tuned for more.